Hello everyone, this is Leo and welcome to a double program tonight. It will be the session recap of session 31, which was pretty hectic, and the session prep, efficient GM prep for my next session, which will be session 32. We will play this session next Friday, so not right away, but still I need to prepare this weekend so I can be ready for it next Friday night. It's going to be an interesting one today because so much has happened in the last session, and I messed up a few things. I'll tell you about that and how I plan to try to pick up the ball from there. And I have some questions. I have things that I didn't solve yet in my head during this week of work. So it'll happen right here. And because I don't want to waste any time, I mean your time, what I'll do is I will do a little bit, maybe pause when I'm trying to figure out some things, and then play again once I've figured out and decided what I'm going to do for this next prep. And just so you know how long I really put on this prep, I will start this timer right now. And as always, my goal is to prepare maximum for 1 hour for 4 hours of gameplay material. So that's my goal. I really want to stick to it. I would really love to even reduce that if I can. But let's go. I will actually start this once I've done my little recap. I will put a timestamp in the description below, so if you want to skip to the GM prep, you can. If not, well, let's start this little session recap, if you will. Let's hop into, let's go to my Roll20 setup, and here I'll just very quickly tell you guys about, and gals, I know there's many girls playing the game right now, and I'm loving it, and I wish there were even more. So girls and guys, this is what happened last session. So first of all, if you can see in the bottom of the so you see the little skulls there, that's where the battle started. So my group, which is composed of one ogre magician called Wild, a pyromancer called Mikariol, there's a Templar of Prios, a girl, she's named Lodome. There's a barbarian bushman guide named Mirizin. And there is a goblin self-taught mystic who thinks he's a priest of Prios and actually has powers from the Prios tradition, who's called Bo Dedgoda. And they were all there with their two porter ogres that they picked up in the goblin village near Thistlehold. And they were there faced by Eran Kalfas, a Templar of Prios, a young man. I checked out what their family was all about, and that's super interesting. I have it, where did I note this? Those are my notes for last session. And I told you in the last video that I had to check those origins of the Kalfas family, and what did I find? Wow. I found that this Eran Kalfas is from a family that is, first of all, Agramai Kalfas, which is one of the notables of Thistlehold. And if you are a player, spoilers ahead. So please, this channel is mostly dedicated for GMs. If you keep on listening, I might spoil major things for you for the campaign of Throne of Thorns. So the Eran Kalfas Prios Templar is the nephew. Well, I decided that he would be the nephew of Agramai Kalfas, which is a notable on the city council of Thistlehold, and which is actually the prince. He is a major member of the Sacred of the Old Blood, which is a secret cabal of nobles that think that because they have noble blood, they are immune to the worst effects of corruption and actually can use corruption to their advantage. And so basically it's a cabal of very self-important nobles that think they can become great sorcerers. And Aaron Kalfas was en route with his buddy. They were 2 knights with 2 squires moving up through the forest to go to the temple, the sun temple of Prios. At least we think it's a sun temple because it's a ruin from the olden times of Symbaroum that was found north of the river Malgomor, and he was going there because he's on a pilgrimage of sorts, because he wants to prove himself as a true Templar, and he wants to participate in the combat to civilize Davokar and rid Davokar of the darkness. So he's really a young, ambitious character. His model in life is Revina Kalfas, Colonel of the Rangers. Revina Kalfas is a very important character. She is one of the major military commanders of Ambria, and she will appear in the Haunted Wastes when she's accompanying the Queen. So a very important character right there. So that's his model, and he has failed, basically. He has failed. He went into Davokar to prove his worth, and he was taken prisoner by the slave rune of Na-Ethikel Ambriagos, the Lord of the Blooming Vale. So I decided just more details. I decided that he would be the nephew of the Sanitary Commissioner Agramai Kalfas. And Agramai Kalfas is the son of Eric, who is the 4th and uncouth brother of Count Malrock Kalfas. So he's like the son of the brother of the Count. I just put a little note there. That's related to what happened in Thistlehold before. Because before in this campaign, the players, when we played Curse of the River Maiden, I think it's called, they almost captured another character that was a shady type on the boat, and they discovered in his bag that he had a tome of dark rituals. And actually this tome contains the ritual Mass Resurrection. And that ritual, that tome, has been handed over to, I think it was to Baumello, the witch hunter. But I've decided, that's what I noted right here, is that Agramai Kalfas, in the background of this story, is going to steal this tome from the Black Cloaks in Thistlehold. And this tome will be used in Mother of Darkness, which is a later adventure of this campaign. So I'm just placing things right from the beginning. I'm trying to tie up, loose ends and try to make everything thread together. So when the characters move along in this story and they find things, when they find this book on Agramai Kalfas, much later in the campaign, they will say, "Oh God, that's the book we brought back to Thistlehold. How could this be?" It's always just added fun, So it just makes the players really feel that that what they do matters, that what they do actually has an impact on the world, and that's a good feeling. So okay, so let's just go back to this little recap. So basically, they started fighting the knights in the middle of the courtyard. The 2 little skull characters. One knight was killed. Eran Kalfas was slaughtered by Lodemé, and one of the squires was slaughtered too. But the 2 others were knocked out. They figured out that they could try to save their lives and not kill them. So they managed to knock out 2 of them. While this was happening, the vilings, the black birds that were covering the entrance of this fortress to make sure that they wouldn't flee, came in and started harassing the mystics, and because they saw that the mystics were doing some good support. And as that happened, up in the tower, if I show you the tower, you can see that up in the tower there's a balcony. The orange line on the side of the tower is a balcony very up, at the very top, and from there Tobela and one of her adepts, actually at first it was the 2 adepts, the 2 novices of Tobela were there, and one of them had Anathema and Ben Will, that's his 2 mystical powers, and the other one had Levitate and Brimstone Cascade. And so first of all, the first adept used Bend Will to control Mikariol, the mage of the group, and force him to run to the tower. Basically, they were trying to draw in some of the PCs into the tower so they could control them and have them submit to Na-Ethikel and Briagos, and at the same time to weaken the PCs in the fight. So they tried that. Mikariol went up the stairs, then regained his control over his body, and it was like a lot of fighting with this Bend Will attempt was attempted on many characters. Here I can introduce a little house rule that I use for that. I know a lot of GMs in this game, Symbaroum, are just almost taking Bend Will out of the story because they find it too powerful and too game breaking. Same thing with the power called maltransformation. It's like a polymorph in D&D basically. And I agree that they're very powerful, powerful powers, and they need to be contained somewhat, or else it can be game breaking. So what I decided for Bend Will, at least, is that the first attempt is as written, and the second attempt on the same character, you have 2 chances to fail. So you roll 2 d20s and take the worst result. Because the character that you're trying to control has resisted once your effect, so he's sort of more resilient. And if you miss, like once you've succeeded this second attempt, if you miss the second attempt, there is no third attempt possible. It's like third time you're out. So just here, a little beer, very good beer called Isa des Chutes India Session Ale. It's from a local brewery here in Quebec. Very good. Okay, so that was happening, and then the ante went up because they were managing to break free of this control, to try to fight back against the people in the tower. It took a long while before they noticed that somebody was up there messing with them. Actually, it took that Tobela used. This was spectacular. I really love that. It's called Mind Throw, and she's a master, so she can throw a chain of enemies. She can throw people around. One movement away, it causes damage. They fall prone. Boded Goda was flinged, and he did on his quick roll to try to fall on his feet. He fumbled, so I had his shield go one side, his rapier the other way. He was completely wah. And so he lost a lot of time just regaining his equipment. And in response, Vild, the ogre magician, took Mikariol in his hands to stop him from flying off, because it's a strong base. That attacks your strong. So if you're weak like Mikariol, you just get flung around all the time. So he held him in place, and Mikariol sent a Brimstone Cascade up on the balcony and really made a great roll. Another little ruling I did there is that Brimstone Cascade, because it's sort of like a targeting spell, I apply, cover modifiers and stuff like that. So they had their own defense on the balcony. There was the distance and everything, and it added up to minus 7, I think he had on his roll. And he succeeded, and he did a great damage roll, and he blew the pain threshold of Tobela and really wounded her, and she just fell back into the tower. They don't know who she is. They just barely saw silhouettes. They don't know who they're firing at, but they're just trying to survive this battle. And now, so that was a big win for them. And what happened next is that the goblin, Beau, went inside the tower, and without waiting for anyone, and started exploring. And the others were thinking of maybe retreating and regrouping, and so they followed him in, and the ogres, those are the ogre porters here, they were rallied by Vild, the ogre magician, and they brought the unconscious knights to the base of the tower, and they're there, and they're sort of keeping watch while the group starts climbing into the tower. And so I had in my notes if you remember this incredibly precise description of the tower that looks like this. So they went in, and I that's where I messed up. I messed up a bit, I have to say, but it's not dramatic, but we'll see what happens. First of all, I just messed up the layout. I don't know why when they came in, when the goblin went in, the base of the tower, the great hall with the big chandelier, I described very geometrical shapes, like almost perfect diamond shapes of metal with lights, with little yellow globes of light with oil lamps inside, and this huge mosaic of a head of an ox in the middle of this tower. I can see here if I'll just go check the actual adventure, what is said. Okay, so it's here when they talk about the Templars. Great entry hall, totally bare. The great entry hall is totally bare and clean, and the walls are free from greenery. Great iron chandelier. And where is the mosaic? Vigilant. Stone floors. It's a strange distortion in the stone floor. I decided that this was a mosaic, and that certain parts of the face of this ox were actually like on a iron pole, so they would turn like this if you stepped on them, and they would just sort of trigger this massive trap door that would open, and you'd fall into the pit. But because of this mosaic, I know that the stairway to the upper levels should be in the middle of this tower. But I don't know why. I just thought at the moment that it was really weird that it would be like a pillar in the middle with stairs. And I found it somewhat ugly. So I decided that it was in the corner. And that was really a problem afterwards, because it sort of changed the whole layout of the way I imagined every level. I imagined that you'd go up and you get to a level and there's doors all around you and stairs continue and stuff like that. And now I had to change that on the fly. So if I put Roll20 back, you see I did this there's a black line in the middle of the tower. So I just jotted that down. The transparent tokens are on the GM layer, so the players can't see them. So I just jotted that down, and the orange dot at the top is the stairwell. And so on certain levels, when you get to a level, it actually opens up on a corridor that leads inside and leads to the middle, where you have multiple doors. So they explored a few levels of this tower. They sort of I won't give all the details because I want to go faster, but basically one thing happened that was really important before they started exploring the tower, is that Mikariol, after almost killing Tobela on the balcony with his fire, he used his bend will control power himself to control the novice that was there. The novice was, I'll show you his stats, was this guy, Arkilo. I described him as curly-haired, black hair, really tall, lanky, really, and he has a very dark blue robes. He has a voice that he doesn't really express very loudly, and his motivation is to obey. Of course, he has the rune in his forehead. And his secondary motivation, if he can be freed from the rune, is to flee this veil and never come back. So this poor man got mind controlled by Mikariol, and he had him take out his dagger and slash the slave rune, which was really intelligent, good move. That's the OSR spirit. you need to find solutions in the narrative of the game. That's what you want your players to do. You want to encourage them to not only look at their capacities, their spells and their talents on their character sheets. You want them to think outside the box and think about narrative solutions to the problems in the world that we're living in this game. And so I was really happy. He's a new player. He doesn't have that much experience, and he's really creative, and I love it. So I wanted to give him something for this. Absolutely. The actual ritual states that if you take off the rune completely, you will be freed from this ritual. I thought that a major slash across the rune would at least weaken the link or maybe break the control for a while. And so I just decided to give this character the chance to flee. And he tried. And what I did is just have him... He basically went inside the throne room and fled to the stairs and started fleeing downstairs before the others could react. So he was just booking it down the stairs. So as the goblin was sneaking up, this guy was coming down. So at some point he listened, he heard the someone was coming down real fast. And so he hid, and he just heard the poor lad get killed by the traps in one of the stairs. If we go back to the adventure itself, there's the stair traps. Here we are. So the stair trap, three traps in the stair leading up to level 5. So there again I mixed up. First thing I mixed up, I put 2 levels at the wrong. I put the first level at the second level and the other one. So I swapped 2 levels. That wasn't too bad. Then I put traps a bit lower than they're supposed to be, which is really not a problem. It's just that things that I have to not note down and remember. So the traps are leading up to the 4th floor, and the 4th floor is the floor that I added. And there's other traps leading up to the 5th floor. So he was killed by poison tip darts, arrows, and he fell to the floor and was dying, but I just described the sounds that he was making. So it wasn't clear what was happening. And the goblin was too scared, was waiting for reinforcements. He was too scared to move up. He thought that there was a sniper somewhere and that if he showed his face, he'd get shot too. So it took a while before they went to see what happened. And when they did, the poor lad was dead. He had suffered from severe trauma from poison and was dead. And Bo, the goblin, has Poisoner as an ability, so he did a cunning roll and discovered that the poor lad died from the poison and not from the wounds. So at least they know that this is a thing. So that's where we ended the last session. They're in the tower, they're in the stairs, they're moving up. They opened the door to this, the court, this part here. They discovered the court in this great hall with this really scary banquet of rocks and dead animals that were torn to shreds by the zombies and that are just laying there, and the zombies playing violin or something with sticks, and all these chandeliers on top of that you can make fall on them. But basically, when we stopped, they opened the door and they had all this court of undead turn towards them with mismatched vestments because they stole it from the victims of the Lord, but still their white faces and red. They've got some makeup on and it's really weird, red lips. So that's where we ended. So what are my conundrums here? First of all, so here we start the actual prep. So I need to start this. So I'm going to start this. So if I pause this video, at the end you will know how long I really took. Okay, so we're on. So my main problems here is, first of all, I realized when they fought Tobela with the Brimstone Cascade and everything, and I was thinking they've been there quite a while, and I said that there's a corrupted terrain here. So you have to roll strong every hour or get 1 point of temporary corruption, and most importantly, you cannot dissipate the temporary corruption you have. So if they did some spells when they were exploring and when they were fighting Na-Ethikel, they would be drained and probably almost blight marked and everything. I mean, Tobela and her crew. So why could they fling spells in the previous scene? So first of all, that was I just forgot about that. At first I didn't think I would put the corrupted terrain in the tower itself, but now because there's something in the underground and the trees around the tower are very deformed and are very different. So I thought it would be more thematic to have some corruption there too. Which I find interesting, so I'm going to keep that. But what happened? Why are they not Blightborn? The solution I'm finding is that they told Na-Ethikel they weren't feeling right, and he sees that they're not feeling right, and he knows that it leads to bad things. So I think that he just ordered them out of the Vale, or at least further off, where they can get rid of their temporary corruption, regroup, because he's not scared of them fleeing away. They have the slave rune on their foreheads. So they did that a few times while they were there, so they were always pretty much clean of corruption. But now they can't get rid of their corruption, so they're going to become... either they don't cast any more spells, or really bad things will happen. So that's one thing that I have to consider. Second thing, the most important thing, is what does Na-Ethikel do now that he knows some people are in his tower coming up to kill him? Is he scared? In the original adventure, it seems as if he is, because they find him standing on the balcony with two servants. He taps them on the shoulder, after which they let themselves fall over the rail. That's funny. I did that, actually. He did that while the characters were coming up the tower. He did that, and the ogres that were downstairs in front of the tower, at the base of the tower, did not succeed at their vigilant test, so they do not know that on the other side of the tower, two servants fell to the floor and started sort of like crawling and just trying to manage their broken bones to get to the door of the house where the rest of the undead army is waiting. So that's going on behind the scenes right now as we speak. Yeah. So then he walks to the throne with a sly smile on his chapped lips. So that, if you do that, seriously, it's automatic combat. I mean, most player groups will just say, okay, I attack. I burn his head to death or something. So I don't know why they wrote that. It's really not going to happen like that. I promise you. Okay, that's interesting. He forced his subjects to teach him the Ambrian tongue. That's great. With a harsh voice, he asks the characters to put their weapons away. Sure. Okay, that's nice. Maybe with a very beginning group, that could work. With the group I have, no chance of this happening. The Templar of Prios, Lodome, she is a devout, fanatic killer of dark things. She could just charge in and try to cut his head off right away. I wouldn't be surprised. I have these questions I want to answer. What will he do? Spore trap. What happens if they're made prisoner? Or even if they get the slave rune on their foreheads? And what happens with the Dragul army and the ogres on the lower level? So those are the major things for me. The other major thing is that I think that a conversation with Na-Ethikel would be really interesting, because remember, in my last prep, I had prepared quite a lot for this discussion. I don't want to force it on the players. I don't care, actually. If they just want to zap him and kill him, they will learn nothing. But here I have things that I wrote last time. So that's prep. from last time that's still not used. That's going to be really useful. You can watch the last video to know what's written on there. But basically, it's a lot of like a lore dump if you want, but it's a very light lore dump. And I'm really not the kind of GM that will impose lore dumps on the players. I really don't care if they want to stay in the dark and know nothing. Fine. But if they have questions for him, and I know some of my players are a bit curious, they can have really good answers. So I would like to have this come into play. I really would. That's the first thing. Second thing, if they want to save Tobela, it's going to be very, you can't just barge in and start killing left and right, because you're just going to kill everyone, which is great, but their mission is to save Tobela and her novices. Okay, so the first thing is the spore trap. I'll just check, because the spore trap is already in the adventure. That's why I use published adventures. I want some work to be done for me. So Na-Ethikel wants to have human living associates with the slave rune on their foreheads in his most important retinue. He wants that because he has learned so many things from Tobela, and he wants to keep on learning. And he's a very laid-back conqueror. He's not really he would want to become the Lord of the Land someday, but right now he can take, I don't know, he can take a decade or two to just build up his army and analyze what these living humans of today, what are their weaknesses, what they do, where they live, what's going on. And basically he just wants people for him not to be bored. And so he has a problem, actually. The corruption of the tower makes living difficult for people on long term. So the way that he would protect them normally is to make them undead. The problem is that if he does make them undead, a lot of them will lose so much of their minds that they don't become interesting companions anymore. So he has a problem that he will try to solve, and that will create opportunities for the PCs if they are made prisoner or even have the runes on their foreheads. I will think about that. I'll pause the video for a sec and I will come back with that. Okay, so let me pause for just a second. I will come back with some solutions. All right. Okay, we're back. So I'm done, and I did it in, let's see, 45 minutes and counting. Okay, so now I can stop it, because I'm going to use a bit more time just to show you what I did. But I'm done. I did it in less than an hour. I'm pretty proud. So let's go in. Let's go see here. There we are. That's what I created. So if I just remind you, we were trying to find out what will Na-Ethikel, the Crypt Lord, do. There was this spore trap idea in the air. We wanted to know what will happen if the PCs are taken prisoner, and what happens to the ogres at the base of the tower and the Dragool army that's going to probably surge from this side house. So first, what I wrote is the stairs to the 5th level are trapped, right? So that's important. So what I did is that they are actually now with the dead novice in the stairs that are lower, that are between the 3rd and the 4th level. And so they can inspect those and find that the steps in the stairs that were the triggers for the arrows are actually marked with little arrows on the side. They're really small, so it's made to make sure that the people of the tower don't actually die on their own traps. But of course, for an invading force, it's very hard to see. So they can automatically see that if they mention that they're checking for how this trap works. If they don't, I will still give the first person coming up the stairs a vigilant -5 test to see it on the next trap. So this trap could be a problem, just that. It could just make everything go sideways. We'll see. When they get to the tower, I wrote, the stairs emerge in the vast throne room that spans the whole width and breadth of the tower. Light and a cold breeze come in. There's a little error there. Come in from the two wide balconies that are carved in the thickness of the walls on the northeast and southwest. In front of the northwest balcony, a day and a tall throne of shiny greenish stone dominate the room. At both sides, great turquoise urns flank the throne. That's where the treasure is. On the throne sits a tall gray figure, all of bone and stretched sinew, proudly erect in a long white tunic decorated with a necklace and armbands of gold, and a simple four-spiked crown on its head. Near it, at his feet, are two women. One is Tobela, gravely burnt to the head and shoulders. The other is a younger girl tending to Tobela's wounds with herbal cures. So that's what they're doing because, she's really hurt. I noted Vigilant -5 to notice the thread leading up to the darkness of the ceiling. If you remember, in this adventure, there is a trap, the spore trap. High up under the dark ceiling is the trap here. The thread. So I didn't have it running down the wall because I find it really weird. So basically it's behind the throne, like over his head. There's a line going up to the ceiling, but it just looks like a line. So you don't really, first it's very thin, second, what is it? Who cares? But if you really look, you can see that this line goes behind the throne and then on the armrest, and that's where he's holding this line in his hand. And if you look up, it's barely visible, but in the height of this dark room, there are urns that are waiting to fall on the characters. So that's the spore trap. I actually didn't write much about the spore trap in my notes because that's something that's really easy to figure out. Well, first, Na-Ethikel wants to talk to the PCs. He doesn't really feel threatened. He's very strong. We will check his stats later if you want, but what he wants basically is to stop them from spreading out in the room and or attacking him. So he will use his dominant ability to really make a statement, and he will tell them that he wants to parley and that they are in no position to impose violence upon him and his land and his subjects, something like that. He will tell them, I need to talk. And he talks in Embryon, broken Embryon, which is really interesting. So that might surprise the players. And they will probably want just a second to figure out what's in this room and see if there's, hidden threats. He will tell them that they are surrounded and will let one of them go to the balcony, see the army of Dragools spreading out in the courtyard. So that will stress them out. We'll see what happens then. I'm using really the OSR mentality of I'm just creating challenges. I do not know what my players will do about them. But I'm just creating these challenges in a way that it's not like automatic party kill. I mean, that's not interesting. So I'm just, the way you do that, well, at least that's what I do, is that always give foibles and weaknesses to your enemies, and also strong motivations that are not just kill the PCs. They need more complex goals, so they won't necessarily immediately try to kill the PCs. So in this case, if they want to, I could even write that if they come forward, he could threaten to kill the Tobela. As soon as he understands that they've come for her. So he has some leverage to force a conversation. We will play out this conversation, and he wants to know if there's a way to convince them. So he will negotiate with them and try to convince them to come willingly by his side and to become the next captains of a great empire of which he will be the emperor. So that's what he wants. The PCs to lay their arms before him and swear allegiance. He's, of course, wasting time so the Dragools can come up and seize the PCs to hold them while he does the rune. He has quite a few powerful abilities that we'll check later, like Unholy Aura. That's pretty cool. I think he has Gravely Cold, I'm not sure. I'll check. And I'm thinking of adding Terrify, Sturdy, and maybe even Wrecker, because he fights with a big Warhammer that causes corruption. So that's pretty good. What will happen if the PCs attack? As soon as they attack, he will use the Spore Trap to try to slow them down. He can use Terrify or Dominate to try to slow them down some more. He will order Tobella and her novice to attack with mystical powers. She can mind throw, so she can throw PCs against the walls. You know, I can do knockout attacks to try to knock them out using mind throw. So that could be interesting. And what I like too is that he is forcing them to use mystical powers, even though they are probably pretty up in corruption right now because they already cast so much. So they're not super high, but they're going to come closer to corruption levels that are dangerous, and that would be an interesting twist. He's forcing them to use magic in a way that is very dangerous and that they would never do by themselves. So I really like that. So he probably will do that, and he will fight with his hammer that causes corruption. So that the idea that temporary corruption is part of this battle and this whole ruin environment is really interesting, because it brings something special to this ruin that is very different from just a fight in the streets of Thistlehold. So I really like that. So I will have him probably try to attack the PCs that are already corrupted and try to make them even more corrupted, and to try to scare them off. If he feels really endangered, he'll just jump off the balcony like he asked his servants to do, and he takes damage as he falls, but less, as you'll see when we check his stats. But if that kills him, I will use I'll just give him a little bonus. He can use recovery even after death. So he will be able to try to recover some toughness and rise from the dead, even though he's already dead. So that could be a fun scene, you know. He's sort of like the coyote on the floor and slowly starts moving again. That could be really good. Okay, so what happens if the players are besieged? For example, if they kill Na-Ethikel in the throne room and they save Tobella, or they neutralize them, so at least if they kill Na-Ethikel, the ritual runes will break by themselves. So if they kill the undead lord, they've actually saved Tobella almost. But they're besieged by an army of Dragool that want their blood. Also, what will happen to the ogres downstairs? They'll move inside, scared. They might leave the knights outside, unfortunately, and they'll probably come running up the stairs and super scared. So maybe they can be used as help to block the doors, to contain the Dragools in the stairs. So if that happens, it's going to be a really intense scene, really dangerous. If they're intelligent, when they talk with Na-Ethikel, one of them might try to slip away and go down and close because I put some iron doors, like an iron bar door in the stairs between the second and the third level, so they could close that door and put a padlock on it or something to try to slow the Dragools down. I could even have the Dragools come up to the door as they're coming down to try to block the door, and have like a fight for the door happening in the stairwell as the negotiations are happening in the throne room or something like that. That could be really, really fun too. If they manage to keep the tower. It's a tower, so it's easy to defend. So it's okay that they can hold off the dragools in the tower. That's made for that. So I would like that to happen. I will let them, use the advantages of this tower to try to contain the enemy. If they try to flee by using 7 League Stride, that means that they need to make a magic circle to be able to come back. Wild needs to cast once, leave with 1 person, cast again in Thistle Old, come back. So it's 2 hours, and he's taking corruption every time. Actually, the people staying in the tower will wait all of these hours and will gain more corruption. Every hour they need to make a strong test. So since it's only 1 point of corruption, because I use the lowest level of corrupted terrain, I don't think it will be really dangerous, but it will be really stressful, because there will be some more Dragool assaults, maybe Dragools trying to climb in the vines from outside. Maybe I'll send the Vilings in. I will give them hell. It will be really hard, but it will be really fun too. If they're made prisoner, they will end up in a cell. So you can see that the base of the tower is this big square, and inside the square is the lower level of the tower. That's where the cells are, the torture chambers, storage and stuff like that. And there's a guard room with a stair going further down. And that stair leads to a precious hall of records where there are copper tubes that are like books, like it's written on the tube, and you can print them if you want. So that's where the theurgical magic and rituals and everything from that is owned by this lord, which is very small amount, because they were a family of warriors and they were really low in the hierarchy of Symbaroum because of that. But there's a few, and that's how he knows how to raise dead and stuff like that. And from this lower chamber, there is a collapsed tunnel. Na-Ethikel Embryagos collapsed this tunnel because there's a darker force in the lower, like even deeper in the rock. That's where they tried an exaltation ritual to become stronger in the face of the elves. And what happened is that the ritual didn't work as well, and a part of a demonic essence took control of the theurg that was helping Na-Ethikel, and the theurg transformed into a horrible abomination that I haven't defined yet. And the abomination is still there and still defending this dark tunnel. And this ritual, the copper tubes for that ritual are there too. So if they are imprisoned, they will be put in cells in the first level, the square level, and they will the actual cell doors were rebuilt a bit shoddily by the dragools, so they're not that strong. So they can, there's different ways they will be able to escape. They might be able to escape when they come to fetch them to put the rune on them. They have to open the door to take one of them out. So they might get an opportunity there. I might have the ogre porters killed and raised as dragools, just to make them feel bad, because they left the poor ogres down there. That's only if the ogres died or were captured with them during the whole scene. If they free themselves from the cells, they might be tempted to just go see what's down there before escaping, and they might find the scroll room, the copper rolls, and the collapsed tunnel. So I even if they don't explore further, I want them to know that there's more to this place than what they've found yet, because basically what I'm planning is that they might not have time to come back here before Erlaber Embryagos organizes his own expedition. And during that expedition, he will kill Eox, take the head. They will come to this tower that is now cleared of enemies, or mostly, and they will finish the job. And they will find the exaltation ritual that he uses at the end of Wrath of the Warden in this place. That would be a possibility. So that's it. That's what I have prepared for today. Of course, maybe I'm forgetting something. That happens, but I think I'll be okay with this. I will just show you the stats of this lord, and then we'll be done. So the lord, that's a problem in this wonderful game of Symbaroum, is that lonely big baddies are usually pretty weak, and that could become a problem. You see that he is armored. He's gravely cold 1. Okay, so enemies within melee distance are paralyzed as a free action should they fail a resolute test. One test is made each turn, and should the test be successful. So when they come into melee, they are paralyzed. That's great. I love that. So that's the kind of defense that you need to survive an onslaught of PCs. So first of all, that's a nice little touch. He's an undead 3, which basically, okay, that's half damage from alchemical and mystical effects, but full damage from mystical weapons or holy effects. So that's also interesting. So he's got a half damage for almost all attacks. So that'll help out. He has, well, alchemy won't help him during battle. Dominate, master, will let him try to subdue a target to force it to negotiate. That's what he will do at first. Flee or surrender. So that's the first thing he'll do. Their Iron Fist is battle related. Recovery is just gaining back some toughness. Unholy Aura is really interesting. So it's adept. That's an active. Okay, so that could be one thing during the negotiation if they start getting cocky. Yeah, but that's a nice touch to scare the PCs, because it causes a d6 damage ignoring armor. So that will be just, it maybe won't cause that much damage, but it will be scary because it bypasses armor. So it will have a scare effect. So I might use that in the combat, especially if they were spored on. If the spores like stimmy them and slow them down, he'll follow up with Unholy Aura to really, put the fear in them. And I was thinking of adding, first of all, Sturdy, which I add to almost all my big baddies. So basically just raise the toughness up. I think I might go for... I think I'll go for strong time, just level 1. So strong times 1.5. So it would give him 24 toughness, and he has 5 armor and half damage. So he's really, really strong already. So we'll see. You can use cards. I mean, you can decide that he has sturdy because they've had 2 lucky hits. Some GMs will say that's cheating and everything, adding hit points and stuff. I rarely do it, but if something that should be dramatic is really wiped out in just a round, what I'll do usually is I'll add some hit points, but not enough to make it a serious threat. Like, it'll maybe give the baddie just one more round. So I'm not fudging the combat to make the baddie win. I'm just... by that point, the baddie is really going to get wiped out anyways. I'm just giving the baddie one last round to do some damage, to try to make this death of this baddie have some consequence, or at least leave some memorable memories for the group. That's why I would use that, give some extra hit points. But we'll see. I've never had this kind of opponent, so I'm curious to see how it will go. The other thing I might use is the mystical resistance. So basically you need 2 rolls to try to beat him. Because I don't want this creature to be mind controlled. He's the mind controller in this story. He doesn't get mind controlled. So I might use that to protect against the bend will. And the Terrify one is that forces everyone that hearing it to make resolute versus resolute or spend both of their actions backing away. I really like this one because that doesn't really hurt the players, but it just makes them flee. It's like a dramatic moment. So this I will definitely use. I might use it like if they're not nice to him during negotiations, and he will have this horrible scream and they will back away. But that's it. It doesn't really have a real impact, but it just shows that this creature has power and it can scare the players. The last one, and then we're done, is Wrecker. Wrecker, what I like about this one is that the creature's attacks can knock enemies that take damage prone. The target avoids the fall if it passes a strong versus strong test. So it's just anything that makes the PCs fly about, be thrown on the ground and stuff like that. That's what action movies are all about. You need those abilities. Just use them a lot, use them often. It's fun. It breaks you don't want static combat. Static combat is boring. So having creatures that have the leap trait that can jump over PCs without taking attacks of opportunity, acrobatics to try to be able to move around and avoid attacks, or even take enemies to block attacks, all that kind of those abilities are the bread and butter of cool action scenes. So use them. So that's why he doesn't have any of that. He just has the big scare, but after that he's just hitting with his hammer, and it can become really boring. So this will spice up the hammer, the Wrecker ability. And I don't care that he has tons of abilities and that they make him, like by the book, he becomes a mighty opponent or whatever. It doesn't work like that. It's what these abilities do, what your PCs are able to do, and you're trying to just make an interesting blend to make a memorable action scene. That's what you want, at least in my book. That's what I work for. And I don't like the rule of cool forever, and like as long as it's cool, it's great. I don't agree with that. You need to have some danger. You need to have some real consequence to die rolls. As I said, if I add some hit points, it's really rare that I do it. And it doesn't have a consequence on the issue of the battle normally. It will just stretch it out a bit more because it was too quick. But usually hit points are not a problem because enemies sometimes need to regroup, sometimes hesitate, sometimes flee to get some help, or you don't need to fight to the last every time. So that's why I'm giving this character multiple desires. He wants to know something of the players. He wants to have them as friends. He wants to convince them that they can be his servants. And he wants to enslave them with the rune. And only as a last resort does he want to kill them and make them dragools, because the dragools are boring. And that's what this character is all about. And I will have a blast playing this character. Role-playing him. It will be great. He will be devious. He will be scary. He will be determined. He will be ready to offer them gold and treasures. We'll see what happens. So I hope you had a good time with me on this GM prep. I hope that this prep sort of makes the point that 45 minutes maybe is enough for a 4-hour session. We'll see. And if you want to support this channel, of course, like and subscribe, or one or the other, or whatever you like. And even better than that, you can go to the description. There's a link to an adventure for Symbaroum that I wrote that could be really easily adapted to any other fantasy setting, called Playing with Goblins. It's a nifty little adventure with a full description of a goblin village, and there's some mysteries in there, and there's a chase scene with special rules. So if you want to check that out and maybe buy it, that would really help me out. So Thanks for being there. Leave comments if you want, if you have ideas for how I should do these videos or different subjects you'd like me to talk about. I will also do some shorter videos about different topics about GMing when I have the time. It's just that right now I'm swamped with work, and I do these GM prep videos because I have to do this prep anyways and might as well share it if I do it. So thanks a lot for being there, and see you next time. Bye bye.